I'm not going to start with any easy questions.
What would you do if you couldn't fail?
I was vulnerable in the sense of I was just who I was.
In my journey as an entrepreneur, I really found who I am as a human.
When was I proud of myself today?
The cold exposure, it conditions the inside of our body to literally adapt.
The mycelium, which you can think of as the root system.
Whatever happens in the gut happens in the brain, and whatever happens in the brain happens in the gut.
Finding the grace and the humor.
Absolutely had mentors, absolutely 100% had coaches.
Work at a gratitude practice.
90+% of the decisions that we make today actually stem from fear.
Allow ourselves to have imperfection.
What the hell am I doing? Can I really do this? Is this really worth it?
A wake-up call to me that I could not try to be something I'm not.
For me, it's really inspiring people to step out. And you don't have to step all the way out.
We're getting real deep.
That's what I like. What's your purpose?
Nothing starts without a plan. Nothing ever goes to plan.
If we can bring a practice into our lives that helps us be more vulnerable.
Entrepreneurship, I truly believe, to anybody on this call is grit.
When people are on the path, they shine.
We so often convert things into flaws as opposed to strengths.
Chaga is actually the most antioxidant rich food on the planet.
Ayahuasca is basically a brew of different plants that grow in the Amazon rainforest.
I'm so thrilled that this content is getting out there, that you guys are promoting bold and vulnerable message and aspirations for people, because I hope that we can all really live that every day.
Hey, this is Jessica.
And Svetlana, and you're listening to the Bold and Vulnerable podcast,
where we aim to inspire others to live authentically through sharing the bold and vulnerable stories of peak performers across a variety of industries. This episode is brought to you by Four Sigmatic. I have been drinking Four Sigmatic products for 3 years, and I'm thrilled that the company has been expanding. My go-to products are the Lion's Mane Coffee, Reishi, Cordyceps, and Chaga Elixirs, and the 10 mushroom blend that I add to my post-workout plant protein smoothies. They also just launched a new protein powder of their own that I am pumped to try. Learn while you shop by heading to foursigmatic.com/bold and vulnerable, or typing your discount code at checkout, all caps, bold and vulnerable.
Welcome everybody to the Bold and Vulnerable podcast. I am so excited for today's guest. We have Chady Dunmore, who is an amazing inspiration and a long time mentor of mine. She's been through trials and tribulations, and I'm so excited to have her on with us to share her story and to hopefully inspire our audience to break free from anything that may be holding them back and rebuild their life. So Chady, I'm going to let you take the stage from this point on.
Hi, ladies.
The first question that I want to ask you, and I know that this is something you get asked a lot, the fitness industry. How did you get into that?
Thanks so much for having me on. For me getting into the fitness industry, I would say I got into the fitness industry professionally when I was about gosh, I don't even know how old I was, but it was in 2009. And it was, bodybuilding was turned to me as someone who was in the gym. It was a girl in the gym who had really nice arms, and I wanted to look buff like her. Mm-hmm. And I just thought, I heard she competed. And let me rewind to like when I was weighing 200 pounds. I just had my daughter, new mom, lost myself essentially in a marriage that, not only being overweight and depressed, I was just unhappy in my relationship, and then more importantly, unhappy with myself. And started working out at home with just workout videos and just pretty much starving myself. And because I was so depressed, finally lost weight and had the courage to go to a gym, and saw a girl with beautiful arms, and she was bodybuilding, and saw her compete and was blown away. That was in 2009. It just like happened like within, no joke, like 2 years, so fast. From there, I lost plenty of shows, and there was a one show that I got second place, and then from there I got first, and then from there I competed at the Arnold. Because that first place qualified me to compete at the Arnold. And at the Arnold, bikini bodybuilding was brand new. That was in 2010, and I ended up being the first bikini champion and tall and overall, and that made me qualify to be the first amateur qualified to compete in a pro level. At that time, I was just so excited that I won. From there, I was offered to compete in a different I did get my pro card. Finally, after that, I was offered to compete in a different federation in the WBFF, and then I competed and I won 2 world titles.
Wow.
And that's kind of how I first started getting into it.
I know. I just jumped into it because I'm like, I've heard, you've told me this story before, right? But for listeners that don't know your story, I want them to get an idea of like, this is what you're known for mostly,
Yeah.
but I definitely want to like dive deeper.
My long history fans and people who have been my longtime followers have known me from bodybuilding, and I'd say that's how I got my platform initially, and that's how I got so many followers, because people were following a fitness journey, and they were seeing me, you know, win all these titles as this new mom, and they're like, you know, and I was a new bikini pro at that time. That was like huge, and Instagram just started, and yeah, my platform has definitely changed throughout the years, and it is not bodybuilding.
Yeah. And so that's why I was so excited to have you on and talk to you again, because I feel like the last time we talked, it was a very different conversation, and we're such different people now, and we're always changing and growing and evolving. And I know that your platforms like started with bodybuilding, and that's how most of your followers, the ones that have been following you for a while, know you. And I think that's kind of how I know you too. But I've seen the change and I've seen the evolution, you know? So to stay on this topic first, because I want to go deeper, and you can tell me at any moment if you don't want to talk about certain subjects. That's totally fine. But to stay in like the fitness arena, you know, I know you mentioned that you had a love for fitness and sports since you were a child, and you know, at what point did you develop this love? Like, who would you say was your biggest influence in this arena of movement in general?
Honestly, when I was like, I mean, I grew up with a twin brother, and I've always been athletic because it was literally survival of the fittest in the house. But I mean, throughout cheerleading and just, you know, watching Cindy Crawford workout videos my mom had in the house, I picked up my first dumbbells, and they were like 3 and 5 pounds. And although they were super light, at that time, when you're 12 or 13 and you're working out with that and just doing movements and doing videos, you're like, this is like, you feel strong. And I had a twin brother, and I just feel like that was really like, besides my work ethic in Tae Kwon Do and just doing team sports like with cheerleading and stuff, I just loved being part of something that had to do with being strong. And I've always had that desire. I don't know if it's because I have a twin, or what it has to do with my feminine energy, or what that means. But you know, it's transitioned throughout from my, you know, childhood to being a teenager to an adult to a mother. And now I feel like being a person in the industry who has a voice is a huge honor, because social media is insane these days. I really want to be a voice in this industry, sharing that being strong is so much more than just looking the part.
Yeah, absolutely.
What was it like for you to go through this journey with a kidney disease? You know, you mentioned that it's not all about what you look like on the outside. It's also, you know, that transformation on the inside. So what was it like for you dealing with a kidney disease while you were going through this transformation on the outside?
Honestly, I never really had issues. The only time I had issues when I was in high school, because I was cheering, and I think it was the first time I was in a competitive sport besides Tae Kwon Do. I wasn't drinking enough water, wasn't taking care of myself, wasn't eating properly. I was overexerting myself physically, that at that time I started experiencing getting really sick. Since then, I have been mostly aware of how I eat, how I train, and just taking care of myself. So I never really carb depleted when I, did bodybuilding shows. I never depleted myself in anything. If I did anything, it was like carb cycling, but everything has always been super balanced. It's just been consistent as far as training and just putting in the work.
Yeah, definitely. Do you mind sharing I'm just curious, what is the kidney disease?
I had medullary sponge disease, and most recently I was diagnosed with an autoimmune disease called lupus.
Yeah, I actually remember that from the last convo. I was gonna get into that as we move along, because that was the last time we talked. It was like a couple of years ago, and I remember you were going through a lot of testing and not feeling well at the time.
If you want to get right into like diving into lupus, I think we can do that. In terms of like being a kid who was, obsessed with sports and fitness, and then, being somebody who then was like over 200 pounds. How did that shift occur? And then how did you mentally and physically make those changes in your life? Because I know that you were doing home videos and things like that, but I think it takes a lot more mental and physical exertion in order to lose weight like that. So I just kind of want to dive deeper into how you ended up gaining weight and then how you ended up losing weight in that process.
Yeah, that's a great question. So, I mean, I was diagnosed with the kidney disease at 4 years old, and I've always had a balanced like diet. And, with my mom being so like a nitpick with just making sure there was always fruits in the house. I never had soda. Um, I always drank water, or if anything was milk in my cereal. So for me, it was like I've always been athletic. I didn't know anything different. I did know I had, blood in my urine. I knew that I was tired every so often, so I had to take iron supplements. But growing up, honestly, I did not know I was any different than anyone else. It didn't happen until I was pregnant with my daughter, where I was a high risk because of my kidney disease. And I had a sonogram done with my daughter initially in the first 2 trimesters, and they told me that my daughter was underweight. And I'll never forget that as a new mom, when you hear someone tell you that your daughter's underweight and it's because you're just so sick. I mean, it wasn't because I was dieting. It wasn't because I was scared of gaining any weight. It was honestly, I was just so morning sickness and night sickness. I was like, I could barely eat. I was like, everything made me super nauseous. And then I remember them telling me that, and I was like, I literally left home that appointment so sad and like telling myself like, you need to get it together and eat. And I may have eaten more than I should have. I enjoyed my pregnancy, but I had my baby. My daughter was healthy. And then it happened after I had my daughter. I probably would say 4 to 6 months after I had my daughter, I was going through postpartum depression. And I remember looking at myself in the mirror and just kind of like, what the heck did I do to myself? And it wasn't even like, obviously I thought that I did it to myself. I'm a new mom. I didn't even know like, this is what happens to you. I hear all these stories of like, oh, you're going to get back in shape. You'll probably wear your old jeans on the way home from the hospital. Like people telling me these stories. And I'm like, okay, this is going to happen. But that did not happen.
I'm so glad that you're touching on this because I think a lot of new moms feel this pressure and you're just like debunking it. So yeah, keep going.
Okay, great. So yeah, I had packed this summer dress and sandals on the way home because I had a June baby. And girls, let me tell you, my foot couldn't even fit into the sandals.
Oh my God.
And it was bad. It was like I had literally had to come home with flip-flops because my foot was so swollen. And I was still wearing pregnancy clothes for like at least 4 to 6 months after, which was crazy to me because I'm like, what the heck? I thought in your mind, you think you have the baby and that's it. Your body goes back to normal. Well, that was not the case. And no one told me that. And no one talks about that, which is so sad because it's so important for us to hear that from other women, that as much as it took you to gain weight, it's going to take you to lose the weight. So within that postpartum world that I was like super depressed and just looking at myself like, what the heck did I do? I had postpartum depression. And I would say that contributed to me losing weight. Was it the healthiest, time that I lost weight? Absolutely not. And when I say that, it was like I was eating healthy, but I was at an extreme calorie deficit. I was not breastfeeding, so I was just going through like life, and it was scary for me. And I didn't know how to handle my emotions. And I just honestly lost the weight by just eating fish. I Googled so how Victoria's Secret models lose weight for, like, I think Heidi Klum just had a baby at the same time as me, and she had to do a Victoria's Secret fashion show. And she was
Oh my
sharing
God.
tips. Yeah, I know. This is how ignorant I was. She was sharing tips on, like, in Us magazine, they like fish, and they give like 5 things they put that they eat, which is so much more than that. But in my mind, I'm like, oh, I gotta follow this diet. And so I was eating like egg whites only, salad, and then white fish for dinner and coffee. And I lost 60 pounds in 4 months. And I was like a new person. I remember like my sister walking into the house, seeing me, and like, what the heck? Did you have some surgery then? And I'm like, no, I just I just lost the weight. Um, and that was literally how I lost initial 60 pounds. Within that time period, it got me enough courage to go into the gym. And that's when I saw somebody super, great muscles, and then from there I started getting fit with like my body. I started learning about how important nutrition is because I was doing these crazy workouts that I had to eat. So again, me losing the initial pounds was not the healthiest, and I have to be really transparent about that. I would never lie about that and say, hey, you guys, this is how I did it, because that's not how I did it. Now, maintaining my weight loss has probably been it's more difficult than, I would say, losing an X amount of weight a certain time frame, um and looking apart for a photo shoot or a competition or whatnot, because I've been doing it for 10 years. It's been 10 years since I first started competing. So, and that I can talk about, eventually, but it's been a process, guys. I mean, it's all trial and error. It's exposing myself to the education that's, scientific facts, and just like, falling off and getting back on, falling off and getting back on. And I've done that, like, gosh, I'm so transparent on social media that I've had some hard times and people have seen it, and I think it's important for me to share stuff like that, although it can be embarrassing, although it can be like, I hate doing this, but people are asking, because I'm human, and more importantly, like, we're a sisterhood. Like, we have to like let each other know, like, it's okay to fall off and get back on.
That's honestly why I love you so much, is because of your transparency. And I'm sure that people tell you this all the time. It's because you're transparent and authentic. And I just want to say that I'm grateful that you are being so honest about your journey and saying that, this wasn't healthy, especially in social media nowadays, where you see these moms that they look beautiful, they look so glamorous, they look airbrushed, like amazing, and then 2 days after birth it's like they have a flat belly. And that's what
I
women
know,
are
it's insane.
seeing. And that's the thing, that's what women are seeing. They're not
Yeah.
seeing like what's really going on behind the scenes, really. So I appreciate your transparency, and I think that that's what makes you unique and special.
Oxygen, I just have a recent cover with them, and this is my 4th cover with them. And I have a blog out, and I'm more than willing to send you guys a link if you want to share it with your readers. But each of these covers, they represent a chapter in my life. And I think that one of the most important things that my platform is to share with everyone is that although I have these beautiful covers and I have these accolades and titles, I, those covers represent a chapter in my life where I was going through something, whether it was positive or was negative. And I would say my first cover, me winning world title, at that time I was going through a divorce. And people they don't know that, like, gosh, like I have all these people who are mesmerized and so, like, putting me on a pedestal when they had no idea what I was going through personally. So, we tend to put people on certain platforms on what we see on social media, but no one really knows what people are going through and why they're going through it and what they're using the gym for. So, I'll share that link with you, but the the chapters that I went through, everything from going through a divorce to being insecure with myself to chopping my hair off because I left in a very abusive, physically abusive and emotionally relationship, and transitioning to this my most recent cover, which I would say is my rebirth cover, where I literally have come back from the dead, I feel like, because I had lost myself throughout the last 2-3 years. And it's just been something that I'm really proud of. I'm excited to be back, in the industry, being recognized as someone who is still inspirational, which is mind-boggling. But it's an honor. It's definitely an honor to still be getting published and having people who just want to hear from me.
Yeah. Wow. You've kind of transitioned into some of the topics that I wanted to go deep into. You mentioned chapters in your life, and like each cover represents a chapter. And again, this is like your whole tagline of like, you help women rebuild. And I've seen that throughout, like, just following you and witnessing your transformation. And I do feel that you've rebirthed. And, I'm curious, and you don't have to answer this at all, but last time, we had a conversation, you were in a completely different headspace. I was too, honestly. I'm not the same person I was then, that I am now. I'm sitting here pregnant, which is mind-boggling to me. But you were in a different relationship, a different headspace, and you were also going through this time when I remember you had moved back to Sacramento and you were trying to figure out what was going on with you physically. So can you touch on that? Like, so I guess that's two questions. Like, what was going on then with the autoimmune disease and with the relationship that you were in then? And how did you recognize that that wasn't for you?
Yeah. So I had moved back about 2.5 years ago. I would say 2 years ago, right? Or was it a little bit over 2.5? I was literally starting over, like rock bottom. I was living in LA for about 3 years, and I moved back to Sacramento. Had no car, no job, no identity, and I was lost. I was starting over, and gosh, transitioning to like these 2 years where I'm at now. I would say the first year of moving back, I was healing. I was going to therapy. I was just trying to go through the motions. And when I say that, I was rebuilding my life. I was a single mom again. I'm still a single mom, but I'm in a relationship. So I had moved back, no car, no job, no home, had to move back in with family. I didn't have to move back. I left the relationship, a very toxic relationship, started over, ground zero meaning no car, no job, no identity. I'm like, who am I? And had to rebuild myself from everything from listening to podcasts to books to I went and saw a post-trauma therapist, to just really, keeping myself in solitude, surrounding myself around my family and my friends, no dating at all, at all for a year. And I just had to like find myself again. Within that year, unfortunately, my dad passed away, and it was hard. It was really hard because I felt like the storm, it was like a hurricane that I was going through, and a tornado just drove all their, a tornado just went over me on top of the hurricane. It was like I felt like just so demolished. And within the second year, I started dating one of my guy best friends and was healed, started feeling like myself again. Work was progressing. I had a car, had my place, and things were back in motion. And most recently, I'm now back in the industry working again, getting published. This weekend, I am hosting my first camp. I would say not camp, kind of like a fitness little workout, where I have people coming, and I just feel like me again. And it took time to heal and to get where I'm at now, but it feels good to be me again. And that's why I said my final cover that just came out feels like my rebirth, because I went through such an intense storm, that I didn't think I was going to get through it. And I think that anybody can resonate with that when you're going through these motions of life where you feel like the rug is getting pulled underneath you left and right. You're just like, how am I going to get through? This is just never going to happen. And you get through.
Yeah. Wow. I remember talking to you, and it seems like when I talked to you, you were still sort of in it. Um,
Mhm.
and I don't want to take you there if you don't want to go there. Because I know that that's very personal and it's a lot. We just like to get bold and vulnerable here. And sometimes, but that doesn't mean that you have to go back into like a time that wasn't like great. But I'm just curious, like, what would you say you really learned during this time and where you are now? Like, what was the biggest lesson for you here?
No, I'm pretty open to talk about a lot of things right now. I think that one of the biggest lessons that I learned throughout, starting my fitness journey to where I'm at now, in the industry, and being a representation to women who want to rebuild their lives, I would say, you really have to honor yourself. There's a lot of times that, we grow up with the notion to people please, and that is something that I have transitioned into relationships, and it has probably been one of the biggest no-nos. And and trying to make things work when the signs have always been there, the red flags have always been there. Speak on this on more than just relationships. I remember doing certain things in the industry that I probably didn't want to do completely, but I had, I was on a winning streak, and I was on this, keeping up with the Jones, what I would call it. And then, it transitioned to my relationships. And that's something I really I learned throughout now, but it all stems back from my childhood. And I speak on this a lot on some of the stuff I write on social media, but there's a lot of stuff that a lot of us can't control on what happens to us in our childhood, but it's how our actions take on our experiences moving forward is our responsibility. And when I say that is that, for example, my relationships was stuff that I was choosing relationships that I saw growing up and what I thought was acceptable, and it was not acceptable. But I didn't have any idea that there was actually healthy relationships. So those are things that I know now, and those are things that we all have triggers and stuff that we go through that can be traumatic to us. But for me, it's just honoring my gut, honoring your soul, and hearing that gut feeling in your core, being in complete solitude space where I was able to find myself again and have a voice again. When you leave a toxic relationship, whether if it's a romantic relationship, abusive at home, or even at work, when you're starting over when you get out of that space, it's really hard to get back to being you and to not have anxiety, not have triggers or trauma, stuff to make you remind you of that negative space. And it took me a year to find myself again. within that year, like I was saying earlier, that it felt like a hurricane and a tornado just came over at once. I was completely demolished from the inside out. I wasn't working out. At that time, I was having a lot of flare-ups with my face. My body was hurting. I was sick, like just in bed all the time. No desire to work out, which is not like me. I was barely eating. Again, not like me. And at that time, between therapy and just my family supporting me, and I really had to trust being vulnerable. And when I say that, I would leave my house every day and I would say, God put the right people in my life at the right time at the right place. And I said that literally every single time I got in a car, whether it was out loud or to myself. And I kept saying, God, just to continue to reveal the truth to me, because I was just in a space where I had to trust someone. If it wasn't for myself, I had to trust God. And, between the therapy, my dad passing, and just going through that motion, it took me 1.5 years to get back to being, just knowing I was okay and feeling safe, waking up. And then, my friends would go out with me. At that time, one of my guy best friends for, 15 plus years, I was hanging out with him for a little bit over 1 year. And I realized, okay, I think I like him. And that's when I knew, okay, I'm starting to feel like myself, because I started feeling again. My heart was feeling feelings again. It wasn't like where I was before. I was stone cold and jaded and just kind of like so scared of everything and anything. And I would say I have to contribute that to my family for, supporting me. And I have to say myself for actually really putting in the work. And I say that wholeheartedly, that if anybody wants to grow through any trauma or get through a next chapter in their life, you really have to put in the work. You can't just wake up and say, I want to do this. It took me a little bit over 1 year to get there.
Yeah. Wow. Man, it's so crazy. First of all, yes, you have to put in the work, because there's this whole spiritual bypassing that happens in the online world where it's like, just think positive. And I talk about this a lot, where it's like, you got to shine the light on the shadow, and then you see the light at the end of the tunnel, and healing isn't pretty, and but it feels so much better when you come out of it. You don't have to stay there. And it's so crazy just hearing you speak on this, like, because how you say, like, you kind of like attract into, you kind of like attract certain things into your life based off of like where your vibe is at the time. I don't know if you resonate with my woo-woo talk.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you and I met, I was so lost, so jaded, didn't believe in myself, felt unsafe with myself, felt like really insecure, like same thing, And it's like, maybe on the outside it didn't seem that way, but like I was just like, what the, like, I don't know. Like I was just in a really weird place too. And I mean, yeah, it takes a lot of work. But
yeah, I mean, it says, there's this quote that says, where your focus goes, your life goes. Mm-hmm. And I remember when I was in Costa Rica on a fitness retreat. And I remember them telling me when I got on this mountain bike, I had never mountain biked before in my life. And they're like, remember when you're mountain biking, where your eyes go, your bike goes. Yeah. And it's such a strong analogy, because I got scared and I fell into a ditch. Okay, yeah, because exactly. My eyes, I was looking downwards instead of focusing on the yellow brick road. And it really is like a perspective on life and healing. And, it's very hard to get through healing when you have trauma, and there's nothing you can do on what has happened to you. And maybe it wasn't your fault or doing, but you are always responsible on where you go next. And that's so important.
I completely 100% and 1,000% in agreement with you on that like the trauma that we carry, just speaking on like, let's say like somebody that got raped, right? It's, of course that's not your fault, you know, are you, obviously you didn't like ask for that, right? But it's our responsibility, like where do we want to go from this point on, right? Like how do we want to deal with this trauma, or like how do we want to address this, and like where do we want our life to go, right?
Mm-hmm.
What's your take on like, you know, because you're talking a lot about trauma, so I kind of want to like go into that. What sort of trauma was it that you were, I mean, you had a lot of different things, like your father passing, like the toxic relationship, the autoimmune stuff, like where do you feel that this, or whether you know now, like where it came from? Because I know childhood is like a big one, right? The things that we see, we model, and like we see certain things in life and we think that that's what we deserve, even though that's not true. What do you think yours was, if that makes sense?
I mean, here's the thing is that sometimes we get stuck, and we've all been there. We're stuck in a toxic relationship, unhealthy eating habits, stuck in a dead-end mindset. As I stated before, like I have learned to use these failure-like situations to grow where I'm at now and to get unstuck and to know that I deserve more than being held down by my own restrictions on how far I think I can go. And I think that when we're growing up and transitioning to adulthood, you know, we get limited on stuff like that because we're a child or we're underage, or, you know, this is, you know, a title's been given to us and that's what we're supposed to be. You know, even with me, with being a bikini model, I'm like, dude, I love eating. I don't want to be a bikini model forever. So, I mean, for me, it was literally just knowing, you know, better yet, just as learning, growing from my failures, learning from where this mindset came from. Yeah. And knowing, did someone else put these restrictions on me because society told me I wasn't good enough, or I was supposed to look a certain way, or whatever. And so for me, you know, reach deep down, find the root issue and make the change. Absolutely. And that's something that I really try to like have people resonate with, because only you can do this. No one else can do it for you. Absolutely.
Can you speak on toxic relationships just for our audience? Like if there's somebody out there that is in a dead end relationship or in any relation, it doesn't have to be one that's with a partner, but some like toxicity, and like how you're able to recognize that and just break out of that limitation of like, you know what, I deserve better.
Yeah. You know, again, it's something that I can speak on, and I can guide a horse to a thing of water and say, hey, or here's your water, but only the horse can drink out of it. We have to be, unfortunately, we make changes when we can't breathe anymore. And that's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that people they leave a relationship because their life has been in danger, or they've been physically abused, or they've been given an ultimatum. And the same thing goes with their health. All of a sudden they want to work out when they've been diagnosed with diabetes, or their clothes don't fit them, or their husband leaves them. It's unfortunately that when we get in these toxic relationships, whether if it's a romantic relationship with ourselves, whatever it may be, I like to relate it to so many other things besides just being in a romantic relationship, because there's so many of us that struggle with that, and it has to do with another person, and we like to point the finger. We like to say, oh, I was in this relationship and that's why I got here, because ultimately we make our own decisions. And that is something that is really, really important, because I'm going to sit here and I'll keep telling you different tips for other people who are in toxic relationships. At the end of the day, we are ultimately responsible for staying in that relationship, because there's always an option. There's always an option. And I can sit here and tell you so many situations where, like, you know, someone can tell me and say, well, I can't leave this because I won't have any money. Or I can't leave this because he'll hurt me. Or I can't leave this relationship because of whatever the reason is. There's always an option. And people have to remember that you ultimately have to make that decision and wake up and say, that's it, no more. It's that aha moment that we're responsible for.
The power of choice. We all have the power to make our own choices, and those choices can literally shape the direction of our lives, can shape the universe into a different direction for our destinies. So I love how you mentioned that we get to choose, we get that choice, we get to write the new story for ourselves. And
100%.
Yeah, and you were getting into that too with your like big identity change. You kind of like hit this rock bottom. So what were some of those identity changes that you created for yourself?
I was put in an ultimatum decision in my last relationship, where I was going to lose who I am and what I love, and I just couldn't do it anymore. And I really looked at myself in the mirror again, like I did when I was over 200 pounds. And I had my second aha moment where I was like, would I be okay if my daughter was in this situation? As a mother, would I be okay if she was in this situation? And I was like, hell no. And I'm like, why am I different? What makes me different? I love my daughter. Why can't I love myself? And I realized that if I didn't leave this relationship, I was teaching her what was acceptable. I was teaching her, and I was repeating that pattern, and I was going to make it a generational thing. And I was like, I can't do this anymore. And all those reasons that kept me in the relationship were, I want her to have stability. I want her to, everything that you could think of that people think of excuses for. I was like, no. And I was like, I love my daughter way too much, and I love me way too much. And it was like literally being on a boat where I was like, I have 2 life jackets. That's it. And there's 5 people on this boat. I have to save myself and my daughter. And I did. And that was a choice I had to make. And I prayed a lot about it because there were stepchildren that I missed so dearly. But also, too, I have a responsibility as a mother. And God gave me a child to take care of. And I became mama bear. I thought about her. And that was my inspiration to making my change. And, I don't think she'll know until she gets older, like, what that means. But for me, I moved back home, had family, like, open their doors to me, gosh. And, that's something that I want to touch on, because Oxygen Magazine made a post saying that I was homeless. I can't say that I was homeless, although I didn't have my home. I was carless. I wasn't homeless because I always had friends and family open their doors to me. So that's something that I have to make a statement that wasn't accurate in the article. I cannot thank my family enough for opening the doors for my daughter and I to start over, and for me to like wake up with like not having anything like weight over my shoulders. And I think I slept for a week. When I say that, like, I slept hard that week, because when you're going through anxiety and trauma, you don't sleep a lot. You're kind of like just, on the edge all the time. And I remember coming back and I just slept so much. And I was just like, I didn't know what I was going to do next. And people were like, well, what was your plan? And what were you going to do? And I'm like, I didn't have a plan. I just knew I had to get out of that situation. And I was like, wow, I can't believe I'm 30, my late 30s, starting over. How am I here again? And honestly, there was no ego on it. I had no ego, and I didn't care what anybody thought. I just cared about what my daughter saw, and I wanted her to see me happy again. And I started over. And so I had friends pick me up, go to the gym. I started making money training people here and there. And I saved money to, get a car. And man, it just was steps like that. Like, I literally this is the thing about too, like when people are like, how did you do it? Like, you can't think you have a choice. That's how you do it. If you think you have a choice, you're going to find reasons to not do it. If you just commit to it, whether if it's signing for a program or leaving a relationship, just do it. Like, I'm not sponsored by Nike, I swear, but you just have to do it. You really have to commit to yourself and say, that's it, enough is enough. It's time to get to be where I'm at. What makes me happy? And throughout this last 2.5 years, man, my daughter has seen me the happiest I've ever been. I would say I'm the happiest I've ever been for the last 15 years. because of the work I put into it and rebuilding my life. And I can honestly say there's days that I wake up and I'm just not motivated and I don't feel inspired. And I'm like, I don't post anything because I'm not feeling it. I'm human. But when I do and I get my power back and my fire in me, it's so important for me I write and I post because I want to share that. I want women, especially women, I'm kind of biased on that, but I want women to feel what I feel the fact that I've gotten my life back, because I wish I can just box it up and give it to everyone because it feels so good. It's so sweet to just, it's so hard to explain and put into words. And I'm really good at writing, but I haven't even formulated the words on how good it feels to just get your life back.
Yeah. Oh, wow. I'm kind of speechless right now because everything that you say about your daughter, I can really resonate with that right now, because the moment that I found out that I was pregnant, I said, there's nothing that kind of like opens your eyes up more. And I get it. Finally, I get it, because I never really got it. I never really understood it until now, because I always say, like, my life is not about me anymore. And how do what kind of example do I want to be to my daughter? And, what do I want to show her is okay? And what kind of mom do I want to be to her to make her see that, like, anything's possible and that she's worthy and that she deserves only the best and she deserves to feel good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think both of you guys just touched on it though too. It's like you have to take care of yourself first before you can take care of somebody else. And really when it comes down to it, you were saying you've got 2 life jackets, and it's kind of like a similar analogy to being on a plane and the plane's going down and you have to put your air mask on before you put it on your child, because if you can't breathe, then you can't help them. And so it may feel like you're underwater and it may feel like you're in this toxic thing, but if you have somebody else that you're taking care of, like a child or a friend or, parent, whoever it is, you have to help yourself first. So really, I love that we're touching on self-healing in order to then be able to take care of other people and to be able to use that energy. But you have to fill your own bucket first.
Totally. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And you're in a really like loving relationship now. I see that. Everything that you just spoke about with your words, I see that through your social media channel. It's obvious, right? People get a vibe. Like, we all get a vibe. We can tell. And, what's different here? Like, what is that like? It seems very exciting and loving.
Yeah, it's actually really healthy. It's literally dating my best friend. And when I say that, it's like, we are our own people. And I think that in the past, I dropped a lot of my own stuff and my stuff I wanted to do because I wanted to revolve a person in a relationship. And this time I don't do that. Obviously, we spend time with each other when we can, and we make an effort to be with each other and support each other. But we're still honoring our own dreams, and we're supporting each other. And that's really huge. I think that people go into this notion that if you're going to be in a relationship, you have to like pick one or the other, and you don't. And also too, there's no need to rush. Like, cause I think I did that too in the past, where I was like, just jumping into stuff where, because I'm a lover and I wear my heart on my sleeve. And even after all this trauma, I'm still like putting all into this relationship. But it's just a different type of progression that I'm going into this relationship. I'm more aware of who I am and what I want to do. And so, there's times where my boyfriend's on tour right now and he travels a lot. And as much as I want to go and visit him, I have a daughter I take care of, and I have work, and I love training people and inspiring women and to rebuild their lives. And that's really important to me. No matter what space I'm in, as far as in my relationship, I have to honor that, and he has to honor that, and vice versa. he travels a lot. As much as the ego wants him here all the time, I can't be in a relationship holding someone back if that's not ultimately they have a dream and an aspiration to do certain things. And I think that's the biggest difference. I think that we respect each other and we communicate. And it sounds super easy, but it's not. There's a lot of communication, a lot of stuff that you have to talk about that that bothers you personally. Boundaries that are deal breakers. Those are stuff that you have to talk about, may not want to talk about, and then also too, I was friends for him for so many years. And then within that year of me moving back, he saw me healing and literally sat on his hands and, let me do my thing. And that's, in itself a huge thing. So, I think it's just really important to respect each other and honor each other and know that if you want to be in a relationship, you cannot change anyone. You can't. And if they change, they have to change by themselves and they go through their own motions, but you cannot do it.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think you touched on it when you said that you're your own people. And I believe that it's really important to have your own sense of self when you're in a relationship and two people come together and you make each other better and you grow together and you elevate. And it comes down to values too, right? If you have totally different values, then it's not going to work, right? Like if they're so completely off the wall, right? But if both of you are you value love and growing together and like you said, respect for one another, that's huge. And I mean, I could see that you're just in a totally different place, and you could tell that it's just such a relationship built on love. You could see that it's love.
Yeah, no, it's 100%. It's a union where we just really are excited that we found each other again. And we're just excited for the future, but he's a dad and is in the public eye as well, so he understands my desire to fulfill my dreams, which is really nice. And it's just easy. I'm in a great relationship, and I'm just very thankful. And although we never know what the future holds, I'm just happy I'm still doing me. If that makes any sense.
Totally.
Speaking of the future, I want to dig into what you're doing now. And can we get into what is your purpose and what are you doing now and what does the future hold for you?
Thank you for asking that, because my purpose back then was, at the time, finding validation. At the time when I first started initially getting into the fitness industry, I was in an unhealthy relationship, and when I started losing weight, it was getting attention from other people besides controlling, what my body looked like and felt like. It felt so good for people to be like, wow, you look so good, or wow, I want to be like you, or how can I, and it's that validation, those words of affirmation. And throughout the years where my platform has grown, my purpose has completely changed. I have no desire to compete again. I have no desire to have X amount of followers or likes or whatnot. My sole purpose now these days is to really help women rebuild their lives. Mm-hmm. And when I say that, I mean it. When I say inside out, there's a superpower in self-confidence. And what it did to me, and not just losing weight and winning all these shows, it was just knowing that I make these choices changed my life. And it was literally just as simple as that. Reminding myself that today is a choice. Today, no matter what happens, I have a choice to make what my day looks like. Whether it's someone being, an a-hole to me, I get to decide if I want to get back that same type of energy, or if I just roll it off my shoulders and just carry on being happy and put the music up. And it is essentially that, and transitioning that into taking care of my body and feeling good about myself. Because listen, at the end of the day, there is nothing wrong with wanting to look good and feel good about yourself, And I really want to just help women just gain that confidence, because it is a superpower, and it transitions into your personal life, into your work life, and into you putting forth to pursuing your dreams, whatever that may be. And we lose that. We lose that in the everyday life and in relationships, most importantly. And for me, having this rebirth, I just want to I want to gift it to other people.
Thank you for sharing that. That's a big one. Some of the questions that we asked before, and I feel like you've spoke so much on this, but what's something that is one of your most bold and most vulnerable moments that you can share with the audience? A time, or I feel like this whole topic has been bold and vulnerable, but if there's anything specific that comes into mind.
Yeah, I would say being in a relationship again.
Yeah.
And taking that chance to put it and show it to the world and say, I'm in love again and I'm happy. And I don't know what's going to come of this, but I'm happy. And that's really brave of me to do, because of all that I've gone through and stuff that I've never really spoken vocally to the public about. But I think a lot of women kind of get the idea of the stuff I've gone through. It takes a lot of cojones and balls in English to get into a relationship again and be gun-ho and just not have any notion that it could not work out. Because I didn't go into this relationship thinking that. I did the healing, I did the work, and all I can do is be a better me for him. And when I say that, all I can do is be a better mom. And just, I could sit here and think about, gosh, I can't believe I put my daughter through all this stuff, and I could sit here and judge and, oh my God, I failed this relationship. Oh, I did that. I can sit there and dissect myself, but what does that do? It doesn't do anything.
Yeah.
And so I went into this relationship just being vulnerable. And I think that when you're going to be successful at anything, you have to just have faith and you just have to go full throttle. If not, you'll never know. And you'll never have that chance.
Definitely.
Having the cojones.
Well, exactly.
I love that. So are there any books or podcasts or any type of knowledge or further learning that you're doing in your life that you would like to share with the listeners today?
I listen to a lot of self-help podcasts. One of my favorite books it's an audio book that I was listening to. It is called The Book of Knowing and Worth. It sounds like this guy who's like a robot kind of talking the whole time. But man, he hits on some stuff that I literally have rewinded and listened over and over for 2 years. Yeah. And then also too, besides like my therapy and trauma, but a really great book for any relationship and not just a romantic relationship is The 5 Love Languages. I love that because at the end of the day, I think as humans, we run this world with just not knowing each other's love languages. And we have all these needs and our egos are like, well, I need this and I want this. And I think that 5 Love Languages has just been one of my favorite books of, even being as a mom to my friends and especially my relationship. It's important to know each other's love languages because we all of us have grown up differently. And at the end of the day, we just all want to feel loved. And I think it just builds relationships and I love it.
Amazing. Yeah, Gary Chapman. I don't think anyone's mentioned that on our podcast yet. So thank you for mentioning that. We love him.
Yeah, it's a great book.
Well, thanks so much for sharing. And I wanted to give you the opportunity to shout out where people can find you. Where are you most active? Do you have a website, social media, anything that you would want to share with listeners so that they can give you a follow?
Sure. I have an Instagram and it's at __Chady __. So just my name, Chady. Mostly on there when it comes to social media. I will be active on Facebook, which is Chady Dunmore, because I'm starting a 28-day fast track fitness program on Wednesday. It's a new fitness program that I partnered up with Oxygen Magazine and have meal plans, and I'm super excited about that. You can find me on Facebook on that. And then my website is chadyfit.com. I have online training and stuff, but I only take on a couple of mentorship clients and online clients because I am literally coaching them through like not just fitness and nutrition, but just day-to-day stuff, like the stuff that I talked about. And that's one of my loves that I do. And that's about it. Otherwise, I'm being a mom and trying to eat somewhere.
That's awesome. And where can people find that fitness program that you mentioned?
My fitness program, if you go to my Instagram, is a link in my bio. But I've been talking about it. I'm going to be talking about it all week. Actually, the next 2 weeks, I'll be like just obscene about it on social media. But I also have a 30-day free couch workout on my website. So for people who say, oh, I would love to get a free workout program, I have a free 30-day couch workout. So if you have a couch, you can work out. And I also have an ebook called Healthy Self, but it's spelled Heal Thyself. And it's literally the blueprint to just getting back into taking care of you. And I have a workout program there along with a sample meal plan and a vegan plan.
Thank you so much for sharing all of that information, and we will link all of that in the show notes.
Thank you so much. I'm super excited, and I appreciate you ladies taking the time to speak with me.
Amazing. No, thank you. Thank you so much for coming on and being so vulnerable and honest and transparent with us about your whole journey. And just, I'm so happy that you're happy. So
yay, happy. Me too. Thank you. Thank you. It means a lot to me. I appreciate it.
Don't forget to use your discount code at foursigmatic.com. You can type in your code at checkout. All caps, bold and vulnerable. Thank you for listening to the Bold and Vulnerable podcast. For more information on today's speaker, please visit us at boldandvulnerablepodcast.com.
And don't forget to rate, review, and subscribe. Let's keep spreading the love by being bold and vulnerable. Thank you. We love you.